Howdy! It is October, my favorite month, because of Halloween, but also my birthday. My birthday is in just a few days now, and I am turning 31. I can't believe that I am already in my 30s. I'm no longer just 30, I'm in my 30s, and my 20s are now quite far behind me. Today I am going to talk about 10 things I wish I understood in my 20s now that I am in my 30s. The thing about everything that I'm going to talk about today is that I and most everyone else have heard these things before, but in my case, I never understood them in my 20s, or I, even worse, didn't try to understand them in my 20s. And now, looking back, kind of wish I had. To begin with, point number 1. You don't have to be with everyone that you love. This is a lesson I learned the very hard way. My first love, the first man I ever loved, I stayed with him for far too long because I thought that that's what you did when you were in love with someone. What I didn't realize is love does not equal compatibility. And if you and a person are fundamentally incompatible, it's okay to leave. You can be a good person, a kind person, and still say no. Saying no does not make you mean, it just means that you have boundaries, and boundaries are incredibly important. If someone is asking you to do or say something that you do not want to do, don't do it. Just say no. It's okay. That does not make you a terrible person. And if that other person continues to try and coerce you into doing that thing that you don't want to do, they're probably not someone that you want in your life anyways. Sometimes the right decision is the one that hurts the most. When we are faced with difficult decisions, sometimes we just want to go with the easy option. But the easiest road is not always the correct road. And I learned this in many situations, but it came up most recently with my move back to the United States. It hurt. It was very difficult for me to choose to come back to the United States and leave behind 10 years of my life that I had built in Korea. But now that I am here in the United States and I'm with my family, I realize that that was the right decision to make. This is not in all cases. Not every single decision will hurt when you are making the right choice. But in many cases, you have to really, truly assess every possible decision, and it may turn out that you really have to make the painful one. And as an aside, no matter what decision you have to make, you will get through it, no matter how difficult. It may stick with you for a long time, but as long as you truly feel in your heart you are making the right decision, you will always feel better for making the right decision in the end. Sometimes you feel like you are working really hard, but you aren't, and vice versa. I have had jobs where I felt like I was slaving away, but what I was doing was really not that difficult. And vice versa, especially these days, I feel like I'm not really working that hard, but if I look back on what I'm actually doing, it's some pretty intense work, and I have to catch myself in negative self-talk and remember that what I'm doing is worthwhile. And if you are part of the category where you feel like you're working hard, but it turns out you really aren't, that could come down to some sort of emotional stress that you haven't really addressed yet. And in my case, I was in the wrong field. So I had to make that difficult decision to leave that field and choose a new career. Getting older is inevitable. Nobody can stop the passage of time. You will get older whether you like it or not. And I bring up this point to say that, in other words, it's never too late to do something that you want to do. So in my case, that was violin. For the longest time, I thought that I shouldn't start violin because I was too old. But now I'm so glad that I did because it's insanely rewarding. And another anecdote for this is someone once said that they wanted to go back to school, but they were afraid to do so because they were 30, and by the time they graduated, they'd be 34, and who would hire a 34-year-old or something like that? They felt like they would be too old at 34. And then someone responded to them saying, either way, you are going to be 34, so why not just go to school and do what you really want to do? You are the sum of the 5 people closest to you. I always hated to hear this one because I have had some not so great friends over the years. But now that I am in my 30s, I have noticed just how true this is. A lot of times when I was hanging out with negative people, it would rub off on me and I would wind up being really negative myself. So these days I try to pick and choose my friends very wisely. I don't have many friends, but the ones that I do have, they are in my life because we lift each other up. And that is incredibly important. You teach people how to treat you. So your boundaries are incredibly important. If you are flexible in your boundaries, people will push them. So learning how to set and keep boundaries is perhaps one of the greatest things you can do as a young adult in your teens or 20s. If you can learn how to do that, or if that comes naturally to you, then that is perfect. For me, it did not come naturally. I have always been kind of a pushover, and it took me a long time to learn how to make and keep my boundaries. But now that I have, I am so much better off for it. You can be confident exactly as you are and still want to change. This is a point that really confused me up until a year and a half, 2 years ago. I didn't understand how you could possibly be confident and still want to change. That felt like a contradiction to me. But now I understand it is not a contradiction at all. If you want to change, you kind of have to be confident with where you are. Otherwise, even if you do change, you will never be happy with the changes you've made. If you're not confident where you are now, you will not be confident when you reach your goal, whatever that may be, your goal weight, your goal appearance. Whatever that is, you have to be confident where you are when you begin, if you want to be confident when you get there. Worrying is not only a waste of time, it is harmful. I can't remember exactly where this quote is from, but I think it's from Fantastic Beasts, I want to say. When you worry, you suffer twice, and that is so true. I have been a notorious worrier throughout my teens and my 20s. I worried about just about everything, and once I figured out how to stop worrying about things and just let it be, it was amazing how much better I felt, not only emotionally, but also physically. It was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I actually literally started sitting back taller and feeling more confident in myself just by not worrying anymore. The way that I got better about not worrying is I would take this problem that I had and I would analyze it, and I would look at it and say, can I change this? And if the answer was no, I let it go and I went and did something else. I would pick up some other hobby, I'd go read, I would bake a cake or something. I would do anything to keep me from thinking about that issue. And as time went on, it got easier for me to just let it go without even having to distract myself. And when it came to the things that I could do something about, I would sit down and think about it rationally. Okay, I can do something about this. What are the things that I can do about it? And among those things that I can do about it, what is the most logical way to go about it right now based on current circumstances? Life is largely about perception. How you perceive the world affects how you present yourself to the world, and also how the world presents itself to you. I know this because I used to be a negative Nancy, and everything in my life was negative. Once I learned how to change my perception, then so did everything else. And I'm not saying go from negative to positive. It's not a duality like that. It's more of a gradual process, like so many things are. In my 20s, when I was that negative Nancy, I started to learn quite late, around 28 or 29 or so, that I can change my perception of things. So I began to just take little tweaks in the way that I thought. Instead of thinking, woe is me, I thought, it could be worse. And then instead of thinking, it could be worse, it's kind of okay. And then instead of thinking, it's kind of okay, I started thinking, this is actually kind of nice because of this and that. And it's this gradual process of turning things into something slightly better. Your perceptions become slightly better. And as your perceptions become slightly better, so does your demeanor, and that reflects into all aspects of your life, and it's almost like magic. Those are my 10 lessons that I learned that I wish I understood in my 20s, but I'm glad that I understand them now that I am in my 30s. And I hope that you can learn from my mistakes and that you will take these to heart and at least try to understand them yourselves. As always, thank you for watching. If you would like to stick around for the next video, it would be great if you subscribed, but if not, thank you so much for watching this one. Bye-bye.